The New Fortune Theatre is important to the Centre for History of Emotions because drama itself and theatre is a medium that takes us directly into the emotional lives of human beings. In many ways, space is always a theatre, no matter where it is.
Well, the New Fortune Theatre, from a historical perspective, is a really important resource. It provides a major laboratory for thinking about emotions in drama and theatre in the early modern period, but beyond that, for thinking about social and cultural relations between people. And this kind of space is the absolutely perfect tool for creating and studying that kind of emotional effect.
The story of how the New Fortune Theatre came to be is actually quite amusing because it almost happened by accident. It was the brainchild of the then head of English, Professor Alan Edwards, who was appointed to UWA in 1941. And when he arrived at UWA, there were no theatres. But after the war, some money became available and they decided to build a new arts building. Edwards was brought on to the planning committee and he noticed that they were proposing an interior courtyard measuring about 120 feet by 60 feet. And Edwards carried around in his head the dimensions of the Fortune Playhouse in London, and that was 60 feet by 60 feet. So he said to the architect, what if we put a bridge midway through the courtyard? That raised a few eyebrows among the planning committee, but thanks to some persuasion, he managed to get his bridge. Next, he had to reveal that actually they also wanted to have a platform, a permanent platform built, and then not one, but 3 trapdoors. And at that point, the game was up, and they had to reveal that not only were they building a stage, but they were planning a theatre. And it opened in 1964 with a production of Hamlet, directed by Gina Bradley.
Over the years, the theatre's been used for many different purposes. The most obvious one is classical plays, such as Shakespeare's, but very, very modern avant-garde drama and theatre. During the 1950s, a lecturer in English, Dorothy Hewitt, used to sit at her window overlooking the stage and was inspired to write her own plays. She was one of the most startlingly controversial of playwrights and probably the best female playwright that Australia's ever produced. So the New Fortune Theatre is a very diverse space with multiple possibilities.
Well, directing on the New Fortune stage is very, very different to, say, directing within an indoor theatre space. You have a lot more control over the elements on an indoor theatre, but that makes it a very visceral sort of space for the actors as well as the spectators. So I think you generally get a more of an energy level between actors and spectators than you might do in an indoor space.
So I've staged 2 productions at the New Fortune Theatre. I think my enduring memory of those productions has been incorporating people from the audience into the action, and the way that they contributed to the performance really brought it to life. And so I think in the last 20 years, when the role of the audience in Shakespearean production has become far more accentuated and prominent, the New Fortune is one space that really underlines that.
So one of the most significant things about the New Fortune Theatre is, of course, there's no roof here. So the audience are interacting with each other because in the daylight they can see how other people are reacting in the audience, and that produces an effect that we call emotional contagion, where when you see other people crying or laughing, it makes you more likely to have the same kind of emotional response. So we see different dimensions of the way in which something as simple as having no roof changes the whole emotional dimensions of the theatre and the performance.
Teaching on the New Fortune stage is an extra dimension to the learning experience for the student. The Moved Reading Project, that is a space that allows staff and students to consider the embodied nature of early modern drama, and awareness of how your body or that character's body is going to interact emotionally on stage with other people and other characters, and importantly be aware of that interaction with the audience, which is always a very important part of the play.
Chose Hamlet for us because Hamlet has a real history here on the New Fortune stage. This stage was opened with an amazing...
The New Fortune Theatre is fantastic for learning because it's in an area that all the students can access, so they're sort of aware of its presence before they perform, which I think is a really nice way to sort of normalise the idea of theatre and performance.
The New Fortune is really important for students today and in the future because it's one of the few spaces, certainly within the Southern Hemisphere, where students can have the opportunity to explore and experiment in early modern theatre techniques. And not just students visiting theatre companies, theatre professionals would relish the opportunity to use that space.
The significance of the New Fortune Theatre for international scholars is quite diverse, so they can use it to further their own research, and they can use our space to actually try out how their research might work in practice. That's why the space itself is so important in the learning environment.
The New Fortune's a fabulous research tool because literally it's surrounded by people thinking very carefully about arts and culture, which invites creative and critical thinking about the way theatre makes meaning. I guess one thing I'd be excited about with the New Fortune would be a company of actors who work there. Then that would really start to unpick what the New Fortune's potential is, which I have to say to some degree is untapped. In some ways it's a sleeping giant and it could be woken by an ensemble that got to know the space over time.
The potential of the New Fortune Theatre is really significant, and I feel that in the Centre for the History of Emotions we've just scratched the surface of what's possible in thinking about emotions in dramatic text and in using spaces like this, a laboratory for the humanities, to come to new understandings of emotions in the past and indeed in the present. It's a fantastic resource and it's a fantastic opportunity for the future.